Welcome to another episode of Talking Sense, the sales season. Today, I am joined by Amy Volas, founder of Avenue Talent Partners. She is a sales enthusiast turned entrepreneur, and we are going to dive into how to create and motivate an amazing sales team. Amy, thanks for coming on the show.
Lani, thanks for having me. I'm excited. I feel like we have so much to talk about, so I'm here for it. Thank you. Thank you.
You're here for it.
Yes.
So I have to say, Amy, we've been working on this season of Talking Sense, and I've been talking to a bunch of different guests and, telling them kind of who else was going to be on the show. And what's hysterical is I could literally be like, so I've got Barack Obama, I've got Ed Sheeran, I've got Amy Volas. And people are like, wait, Amy? You've got Amy? And they literally light up. So you have that effect on people. And I think you should know that your spirit and your energy it's really lighting a lot of people up out there. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I do not know how to take a nice compliment. I'm just going to say thank you. I'm working on that. Normally I deflect. I rather hang out with Barack Obama and Ed Sheeran all day long, but thank you for those people that.
Well, you're in their league. In our pond, in our small pond, you're a big deal.
Goals. Yes.
You're literally a B2B celebrity.
Awesome. Yes, I've made it. Awesome.
You made it.
That means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
And I think that that's your passion, obviously, for teams and for people. And, you've turned that into this amazing business. And so let's talk a little bit about teams and people because, this season is all about sales. And it's true for all leadership, right? If you talk to any leader, they're going to say that it's about their people. I mean, people make products, people sell products, people market products, people buy, right? But especially in a sales capacity, I mean, all you have is your team and all you have is your team's time. And so, how do you see that? How do you help people really optimize that?
I think you have to keep in mind that every single person is different. And so when it comes to optimizing for the human element, I've always loved Drift's tagline, like their original tagline, meeting people where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I've totally ripped that off. So Drift, I've ripped you off for years. But truly, I think it is the best leaders that can galvanize teams, realize that people don't go through a car wash and automatically become this subhuman person to be like everybody else. And the best leaders, in my opinion, and the best teams can go a bit to the beat of their own drum, but with an alignment in place that has or keeps in mind what you're doing, why you're doing it, what the goal is, and guardrails or frameworks. I'm not a fan of playbooks. I'm a fan of frameworks, and frameworks are guardrails with expectations. I'm a big fan of setting them early and often, and understanding the stage that we're both standing on together, what that looks like early and often together, but with the latitude and flexibility to adapt and be agile depending on what's going on. Because when it comes to sales and marketing and customer success and all these go-to-market sort of bits and pieces, our customers, they're not one size fits all. And so having the ability to adapt and flex, I think that's table stakes. And in my opinion, the number one thing that a good sales team needs to be able to do is understand how to communicate with each other internally and externally to meet people where they are externally in terms of having a real business conversation, not a talk track, not an objection handle, but a real business conversation. And that comes from being prepared. So that was a lot. I backed up the dump truck. I laid it all out, but that's how I feel about it.
So I want to double click on, so people ask about what, I talk a lot about creativity, and I'm not talking about, making a snowman out of paper, arts and crafts, but business creativity, and I think that the best sellers are super creative. They're creative in their deal structures. They're creative in how they, go anticipate and get through roadblocks. They're creative in how they prospect. And creativity needs some space to breathe, you know? It's kind of the opposite of optimized, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. I mean, well, and I think if you stifle, so some really good advice that I was given. So I was promoted really early on in my career, and I had no business being promoted, and I had no business being a leader at that point. And I got into it for all the wrong reasons. And I realized that, wow, wait a second, I am horrible at this. And the number one thing that I was getting coached on was because I was very successful in my sales career. And that same thing that I think happens to a lot of people, you're really good as an individual contributor, so you should be a leader. That is not great advice. That is not a great idea unless it's a great idea. And there are many things to quantify and qualify before you do that. I skipped that chapter and I just got into leadership. And sadly, the thing that was coming my way in terms of coaching and where I was struggling was expecting every single person to be like me. That because I had success, because I knew what I had done and I knew how to do it well, and people were responding to that favorably, and I was achieving, that all of you should do that too. And it was shutting people down, turning people off. It was stifling that creativity. And through the years, I've really leaned into the fact that you could say tomato and I could say tomato and it's still a tomato, right? It's still going to be this red piece of fruit that we eat and enjoy. And what's interesting is how we all cross the finish line. It could be different. So, Latney, maybe you wear Adidas, maybe I wear Nikes, maybe you're wearing a different outfit with different colors and same, and we both finish the marathon. Doesn't mean that you're any better of a runner than I am. We both did it. And so that's the same thing that I think when you're talking about creativity and having room to breathe to do that, I feel like that's where the framework piece comes into play. And that's where giving people room to breathe and having the ability to figure out, how do I want to prepare for this conversation? What is it that I want to do? And some of the things that happen, I'm huge, huge, huge on the sort of side of the coin of full cycle. I don't love the over segmentation of the sales function. I think it's hurt the profession. I think it's hurt our buyer experience, and I don't think it's efficient. So that being said, that bomb gets dropped right now. I'm going to back off of that, and I'm going to just.
I'm just taking some notes on follow-up points. Keep going.
Whoa! Wait a second, she's coming in hot.
Yeah.
But that being said, one of the main reasons why I'm saying this, and I'm sure we'll come back to that statement, is part of creativity is listening. And when you listen to someone else, you understand what's important to them, what they're going through, what they're challenged with, what they're trying to deal with. And it's not just problems. Everyone talks about problem solving. There are 4 other reasons why people take action. You help them get better, you help them reach a goal, you help them pinpoint a blind spot they didn't even know that they had, and you help them be the hero of their own story, not yours. And the only way that you can do that, and the only way that you can tap into that creativity, is if you listen. So if all of a sudden I start chopping up the sales process, some of the best deals I did, one of my biggest deals of my entire career was over $30 million. And some of the stuff that helped me close that deal came from the initial conversations I had 2 years prior. I just had to listen. So it's that. I'm going to take a breath and I'm going to take a sip out of my no mercy cup here.
All right. No mercy. No mercy. I love it. So we're going to work backwards. Let's start with over segmentation. Okay. Because a lot of people are in planning phases right now.
Yes.
Every company is getting challenged to be more efficient.
Yes.
And when you talk about over segmentation, I assume you mean hunter farmer. Is that what you're talking about? And CS? Are you talking about like there's a CS role, there's people that land deals, there's people that farm deals, there's BDRs that you could say that was part of the over segmentation?
I'm thinking about that first and foremost, of like your SDR, BDR to your AE to your solutions consultant to your account manager to your CS to your, so it's all of those bits and pieces. And by the way, I think CS is really important, but I do believe in a land and expand model, especially heavy duty enterprise. And I do strongly believe that the original person that was part of that deal should absolutely still be involved, but there should be supporting characters. I'm talking about coming out of what we just saw in the marketplace of this growth at any cost, where it was like, just get new logos and that's what we need to do. And it's like, but wait a second, nobody's measuring the very, 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 very tippy top of the spear in terms of the funnel of all of the leads or conversations that you created. What's happening to all of the people that stopped talking to you? Because all you're measuring is how many calls did you book or how many appointments did you set? What happens to all the people that you turned off? Because in my opinion, if you can't open a conversation, how in the world can you close one, and vice versa? And so if you're not equipped to do that well, and if all of a sudden a lead comes your way, or if somebody's knocking on a door and all that they're programmed, and I'm using program for a very specific reason and I'm being intentional about it, if all that they're able to do is have that kind of conversation because they're programmed to just think that way and nothing else, and they don't know how to have a business conversation, and you get somebody like me on the phone and I'm considered SMB, but your girl comes from enterprise and she's been around for over 30 years, I act like an enterprise buyer. I am gnarly to sell to. I want what I want, when I want it, where I want it, how I want it. So if you're coming my way and you're cold calling me and I pick up the phone and I ask you a specific question about pricing or something about your technology that I want to see right now, and you say, I can't do that, comes in 3 steps from now, you've lost me. But nobody is.
Okay. I see what you're saying. That is totally annoying. I'm with you. I mean, I wrote a
Yes.
book, no spam, no forms, no cold calls, because to me, I guess how I would describe it is creating a process that benefits you, but doesn't benefit the prospect. And so like what I try to think about is, what is that prospect experience? And how do we make sure that it's frictionless? To your point, they want to see a demo, let them see a demo. You know, like if they want to try the product, let's show them let's get some snacks going. Let's have them look at the product, you know, like
Yep.
who doesn't love a little snack, you know, but it's no one wants to feel like, a prospect doesn't want to feel like they're going through an assembly line. Like that's terrible.
No. And with all the studies that show when a buyer engages, they've already done a lot of their research. They're already coming to the party prepared. If you're not prepared to meet them where they are, you've already lost them. And so that over segmentation piece and efficiency. So going back to your statement of 'tis the season to plan, and thinking about efficient growth, which is the new buzzword that everybody's using. When I think about over segmentation, and you have a BDR team, and then you have an inside team, and the inside team is split up between inbound and outbound, and then you have an AE team. I mean, think about all those layers, right? I don't
That
think
actually has a lot of cost too.
Thank you. You literally just crawled into my brain. You took the thought right on out of the cerebral cortex and you grabbed it out like a baby snack and you just dropped it out. Yes, because each one of those people has a cost associated to it. There are leaders to those teams. Each one of those people needs a salary, they need benefits, they need tools, they need coaching, they need time, they need all of the things. And if you have that split up a million ways to Sunday, you're repetitive in what you're paying for. And the last time I checked, the majority of the clients that I talk to, or customers or companies, they haven't cracked the code between their SDR team and their AE team, and it's not efficient and they struggle. Oh, and also they suffer from great turnover. So if I can't keep the people that then I hired and they're not efficient, what in the world am I doing? That's why.
So let's double click though. I mean, because what the alternative argument is, but AEs don't prospect.
I was an AE and I did all my own prospecting. Why don't they prospect? Because you've trained them not to prospect. Train them to prospect then. I hate that excuse. That's a horrible excuse. Anybody saying that, get out of the conversation. You should not, no, horrible. Because you don't want to train them to prospect because it takes longer. Because why? Yeah, it takes longer, but you're going to create more efficiency within your pipeline. And yes, you might have to hire a few more AEs, but you're not going to have to hire as many BDRs or as many everybody else. So you can do more with less ultimately. Mind you, I've managed the entire country before, creating an enterprise sales function and doing a lot with a little. You just have to support your people in the right way. And it's just it's one of those things where it's like, well, AE shouldn't prospect. You know why? Because we've made them lazy, quite frankly, because tools have made us lazy, because we haven't properly understood the fact that tools are here to enable us, not replace us. And sales is not pressing go on an outreach or a sales loft campaign. That's not selling.
No, that's not. That's definitely not. So I'm going to give
I'm
you
not yelling
though.
at you, by the way.
I'm going to give a little bit of context though, because I actually am a big believer in BDRs. I love our BDRs. I think that I think it's such a precious time and role, and I'm going to unpack that, and maybe we violently agree, maybe we violently disagree. Either way, I still think you're awesome. But I first of all think that hiring AEs is the most risky proposition out there. They're extremely expensive, and a lot of times they totally flail out. And so I definitely believe in having the BDR progress. And we've tracked this. I mean, our BDRs perform much better once they graduate and move. And we have BDRs that are now enterprise sellers, and they are always top 3, the ones that we've been able to progress and promote, which is majority, because we have an up or out system where it's like, you can't be a BDR for life. I say you can't stay in mom's basement. This is not how it works. You're going to go to college. You're going to get your own apartment. Like, that's how the program runs. And it's, we want you like 15 months. That's it, and so that has been really beneficial for us. I would say on the AE's prospecting, you have to create a culture of prospecting across the entire team, execs included, I believe. So I go and prospect. Like, I'll sit in the office and help prospect. Mark will go, we'll do call days all together, big teams. So I think you have to create a culture of prospecting so that AEs do still prospect. However, when you look at least for me, when we look at the amount of pipeline that has to be created to double every single year on a relatively large base, and we look at the way buying signals happen right now. And what I mean by that is only 3% of people fill out a form. They just don't. So I can gate my content. I can have more demo. I can do, I can try to get to 3.2% of people filling out a form.
Yeah.
But that's not the game. The game is the 97% that actually are engaging with your content. They are coming to your website. They are. And so you need, I think, a good system to capture that demand. Like marketing's job is to create that demand, but then you need a team to like systemically capture it. And it's a lot of time to be able to go and capture that demand. And so that's where I see the role of the BDR. It's a little bit of an extension of marketing. And that's why I think it sits in between. It's like, it's the final step of codifying all the signal you've created and getting to an engagement point. And so, I actually don't know how you would operate without it today, just given the dynamics of how buyers buy. But I think you have to set them up right. I think they need access to look at all the signal. They have to be very savvy. It's not just, I can turn on a nurture campaign and spam people. That's not what I'm talking about. They have to be they have to be relevant, and you need to train them on that relevancy. But I don't think they're a bad aspect of the mix, as long as you, like, to your point, don't say, oh, AEs, you don't have to prospect. Like, that's not going to work.
No, I think every single AE should be doing a significant portion of their own prospecting. And I'm not anti SDR, BDR. I think everybody needs to start somewhere. I want them to be trained to do everything. So this is why I like full cycle. What you're suggesting, I'm actually not in disagreement of. I think where we're going in this digital age of having that capture of what happens with people that are engaging with. So I agree. You could do all of your wizardry, and you could wave a magic wand and get it to 3.5. Let's be generous. Let's do that, right? That still doesn't solve for everything else that's happening with all of your content. And so what do you do with that? And an AE is not going to be able to do that. So it's
too much.
Yes. And so who is that? What is that? I don't know. You could call them whatever you wanted to call that kind of intersection. And I do think there's something there that needs to be solved for. And I do think that's the gateway between sales and marketing. Because here's the thing, is that there is the silo between sales and marketing. And I believe firmly that this is an ecosystem. You can't have one without the other, just like CS. These are all things that need to happen because it touches the buyer. So it's not like, oh, marketing just does their thing, and then sales just does their thing, and then CS just does their thing. It all is cohesive. And I'm thinking about this actually for the first time out loud. So you and I are just talking about this. I'll always be full cycle. So I'm going to die on that hill. But at the same time, what you're talking about, that intersection, I feel like there is some nice connective tissue that tethers marketing and sales together. And I don't know what I would call it. I don't know if I would call it a BDR, quite frankly, because I don't think it's that. I think it's something else that is, I don't know, but I really like what you're throwing down there. And I like how it is a feeder system of, if you want to get further into marketing, you can. If you want to get further into sales, you can. If you want to get further into...
We've had people go to customer success. We've had people go to product.
Yes. I'm here for that. I'm totally here for that. Because most times, how many job descriptions do you read or see where it's like, this is an entry-level role, but we want 5 years of experience? It's like, what? And we all...
So what is entry level about it?
Yes. And it's like, we all had to start somewhere, especially in the sales roles. This is entry level, yet I want you to, or it's an SDR role.
And you need industry expertise.
Yeah. I'm like, wait, what? Where it's an SDR role and we consider those to be entry level roles. I'm like, but it's an SDR role for an enterprise buyer, and that's not an entry level. What are you doing? So it's interesting. And the interesting thing about our conversation, Latney, is you're at Sixth Sense. You are a robust company. I deal with earlier stage startups that don't have all of the things that you have. And so I think it's important to say, from my point of view, I think about this from the earlier stage where I want those sales individuals to be able to have every part of that conversation. And as they grow to a mature organization like yours, you start thinking about these things. And I really am turned on by, you're going to get my wheels turning because I really like that.
I
That
wonder if calling it an SDR is the wrong. I mean, that's what we call them BDRs, but essentially what they're doing is following up on intent. So that's my whole thing is no cold calls. So they're not like randomly looking at a target account list and being like, let me call this person today and like try to strike a conversation up. They're literally looking at intent signals and using that to, again, capture demand. So I don't know, maybe it needs a new title or way to think about it. But I want to click on your point about the size of the company, because I think you're absolutely right. When you're a smaller company, like you're trying to establish product market fit still. And everybody is just out bananas having conversations, like picking up the phone. It's like a big feedback loop that's required, to be able to shape the, ultimately back to the product, to make sure that you have the right product to take to market and scale. Once you establish that, then I think it's a little bit different. But yeah, those early AEs, they're evangelizers. They're not even salespeople, And so that's a different kind of talent, I think, potentially.
Oh, it's just like there's a different kind of marketer, there's a different kind of sales leader. Different stages of a business require different muscles that you work, and it's not for everyone, and not everybody is ambidextrous. So I think about the work that I did way back in the day when I worked at Yahoo versus them being employee number 20 something at Indeed, right? That's a totally different ball game. And I saw many of my colleagues and my friends come over and they struggled and it wasn't for them, and that's okay. And so um, the earlier stage, trying to take a page out of the playbook, and I snarl at the word playbook, but you know why, but taking a page out of that and trying to force feed it into their world that doesn't make sense because it's not the same. So if all of a sudden there's a founder that's listening to you and I talk and they're like, ooh, I want to do what Latney does. I want that. You haven't even created that much.
Yeah, you got to create
to do that.
Yeah,
Don't
you got to create the demand to get captured.
Yes. We don't even have a marketer yet to do that. So it's interesting where it's like, the best thing that I tell early stage founders to think about is, how are you meeting your buyers where they are, wherever they are? And if you try to over engineer a buying process that makes it difficult, that is ridiculous. There's a company that I advise, and I was listening to calls, and my blood pressure shot up. I was like, wait a second. On a call, one of their AEs said, forgive me, my hand might be slapped. I'm not allowed to tell you this. That was one. That was the first thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're just answering their question. Who did your script? Stop it. And then the next was, I can't show you this right now. We're doing the front end demo and there's a back end demo later. So if we like what's happening here, we'll do the back end demo. I'm like, what's a back end demo? And it's not that technical of a product. Back end demo. So it's like, what are we doing? When did we just lose sight of the fact that it's kind of like, I use this analogy a lot. Have you ever shopped at Target, Latney? Have you ever gone there?
I have.
Okay. So I love me some Target. And I have a slight obsession with paper towels and Windex. There's just like a thing with Windex and paper
I
towels.
do. I love Lysol wipes. So I along the same category.
Yes. Yes. So it would be like on a Saturday and I'm running errands and the only thing that I need are the paper towels at Target. They're the only ones that I like. They're only there. They're not at Costco. They're not anywhere else. They're just there. And if that's all I need and I go into the store and somebody's at the store and they shove a cart at me and then they take me down the greeting card aisle, that then they take me down the shoe aisle, that then they take me to the sheets, that then I'm angry. All I wanted, no cart. I just want to beeline over to the paper towels, maybe grab a bottle of Windex while I'm at it, but my hands free and go through self-checkout. But now you've got me doing this. I don't want it. I do not want that. And maybe the next Saturday I do want to do that, but not right now. And so why is it that when I go to Target, it's not like I put on some like different part of my brain cell now when I'm buying software? I still want what I want when I want it. And so
Yeah,
that's
I
the
talk
thing
about that with Amazon. I'm like, it's like takes 3 seconds to order something, and then
yes,
we come to work. We're not a
yes,
different person. We literally using the same computer, probably.
yes. And right before you had that call that you were going to negotiate a big piece of software, maybe you got sucked into that Instagram ad and in 1 second you bought the next thing that's going to be delivered in a week. It's like, make it easy for me. And
Make
so
it
I
easy.
think that's the thing, big or small company.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Demos are a heated thing because sometimes salespeople feel like all I have is the demo. So I need to hold that back. Right. And the same thing as a marketer, like the demo is what gets me my inbound. Right. So we had this big debate. Do we just have videos demos on the website? Let people, see some of the product. And what's interesting for those listening, I try it. It might work for you, it might not. But for us, we have a 20% actually better conversion rate on the requested demo when we have the small demo recorded on the requested demo page.
When you give them a little snack.
Little snack. Everyone likes a snack, Amy.
Well, and I have an unpopular opinion. I grew up selling services first before I sold products. And when you sell a service, you have nothing to show.
That's
It's
true.
a highly visualized sale. And so it goes back to that original thing of if that's and not for marketers, right? But for sellers. So I'm talking about sales, not marketing. That's a different animal. I'm not a marketer. Celebrate it, love it, do it for my company. But it's a very different muscle altogether. But I will say from a sales perspective, so my opinion comes from that. Your demo is not the be all end all.
I know.
And
It's the conversation around it. It's the application of it. It's the helping them reimagine a different state than they're in today. That's the creativity.
yes. Well, it's the ability to have a business conversation.
Yes.
It really is. And in the spirit of efficient growth and meeting people where they are and being good leaders, how do you show up for your team and planning? If I were running a team right now, the number one thing that I would budget is I need to make sure that my team is equipped to have a business conversation, not feature dump and hope that something sticks. So if I back up the dump truck and I lay out enough onto my buyer that something will stick and that I hope that they'll buy, no, that you show up having a business conversation.
Boom. Say that again. That's the essence, right?
Yes. Yes. And one of my favorite ways to do that, and it's not like I have an affiliate link or I'm not getting paid for this. I love this. I have a masterclass subscription for the year. And it's all these different big names. Sometimes it's like, I love me some makeup. So Bobbi Brown's on there. And you've got people like, I don't know, George Stephanopoulos is on there. And all of these big names are on Masterclass and they're giving lessons. And I love George Stephanopoulos' Masterclass on purposeful communication. Every single person that wants to communicate with another person in business or otherwise should go through that masterclass. And guess what, leaders? It's less than $200 for each person on your team.
Everybody to go through it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So why not do that? I mean, literally, why not do that? And it talks about a lot of the things that we're talking about. And I just
Also
feel
like
like
some basic level of finance and accounting and, I mean, in our area, like just understanding good SaaS metrics. It's like you need a financial literacy, but we don't teach it in our sales enablement, really. I mean, we talk about value drivers and I think, executive priorities but I don't know if we do a great job contextualizing why that would be an executive priority in the context of like a P&L or an earnings report. You know what I mean? It's like, so then we wonder why it's like not sticking,
well, you know what could be a cool idea is training doesn't have to be this big expense of external resources. When I think about what you can do for that is have your own CFO or have your own executive team talk about how they forecast, how they make executive buying decisions, and do a session on that. It's free. And you whip up a whiteboard and you just kick it old school of here's how I think about making executive decisions. And I get approached by sellers all the time. Here's when I respond. Here's when I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I did one, the birds and the bees of a marketing budget. I'm like, here's where they come from, people.
Yes. I mean, and isn't that powerful? And it's like, or a friend of mine, and I think he's brilliant and I learned from him. His name is Ravi Rajani. He does training on storytelling, the power of telling a story. Because that's like flypaper, right? If I can tell a story that makes you feel seen, heard, understood, valued, and validated, and it has this powerful thing that makes me want to spend more time with you. That's the stuff. And if you're doing enterprise sales, which is what I have done in my career, you can't show up ready to administer a discovery enema, hoping that they will give you some sort of hidden nugget. You have to actually show up with a point of view.
And you got to spark the conversation.
Yeah, with a point of view based on your research, based on what you know that you understand, because you showed up to the party prepared and well-researched to have a discussion, that you're talking to other people like them, that you have a point of view that's interesting to them, because you have about 5 seconds, otherwise you're done. Think about, Latané, when somebody sells to you and they're like, so what keeps you up at night? You're like, get out of here. Get right on up.
I know. I'm like my kids, waiting for my kids to come home and hoping they make it home safe. Do you have some kind of safe driver product you can tell me? That's what it is. But just bringing this point home.
Tell you that now.
What? Well, yeah. But just bringing the point home, I would say people don't remember what you say. They remember how you made them feel.
Yeah, Maya Angelou for the win there. Yes.
Yeah, Maya Angelou. And my godmother is like this kind of Southern lady. And she always says, well, Latané, you got to have your party piece. And I'm like, what's your party piece? And she's like, that's when you go to a party and you have your story that's kind of funny and going to make everybody laugh. And like, everyone needs a little party piece. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, it's how you add value to a situation.
Here's to your godmother and the party piece. I have never heard that before, but I'm here for a party piece. Yes.
Yeah, but it's kind of the same thing. Like,
it's totally the same thing.
You gotta bring it.
Yes. Yes. May we all have our party pieces. Yes.
Maybe I'll have a good party piece. All
Yes.
right. Well, this has flown by. But there's a couple questions that you can't get off the show without answering, even though I didn't ask any of the ones, but that's all good. I want to ask about confidence. So right now, we've got a campaign, Proceed with Confidence. And I'm asking everybody on the show, what makes you confident? What makes you feel like you can proceed with confidence?
I am a big fan of slowing my mind down. Like when when I'm unsure of something, I start spinning out in terms of just like freaking out or thinking about all the things as to why it might not work. And that's a signal for me. So I'm very in tune with when that starts happening. That's a direct signal that something's going on. And I'm a big fan of journaling. And I do it old school where I write it down, because when you write something down, it slows your thoughts down and you become much more intentional. And then I look for the patterns and themes. And one of the things that I do with the way that I journal, the methodology that I have or that I've kind of created or mashed up over the years, is I ask myself a series of questions every day. And one of those questions is, what's kicking me in the rear end? Although I put it in a little bit of a more vulgar term. What's kicking me in the rear end? What am I leaving behind? What am I proud of? Um, and what did I want to do? And what did I actually do? And when you ask, those are 5 things that I ask every day. And when I ask those questions and then I go back over 3 weeks, and then I have this other thing that I do at the same time where I have a calendar and I have a color coded system and I dot the days. And this is a system that I learned from a friend of mine in the UK, um, just for visual purposes. That, like, if I have red, it means it's like the worst day I've ever had in my life. And I don't have very many red days. So when I look at what I'm writing and I'm leaving behind, or what kicked me in the tail or whatever the case is, and then I compare and contrast with my dot system, and I have a lot of green dots, which means that I'm having good days, it gives me a really good visual anchor of whatever's happening in that moment of spinning me out. It's not that bad after all. And it gives me confidence to keep it moving.
Oh my God, I love that.
Thank you. I do too.
I
It works
love
really
the
well.
visual dot. Well, I'm a big red, yellow, green. I mean, it's just easy, but to see, like, I haven't had that many bad days. Like, I got this. Look at all the, I got this. I figured it out. Cause we do, it's all in there. Um, if we just take the time to reflect, that's awesome. So, and then my last question, again, you can't get off without it, is I think you learn more from your mistakes.
Mm,
And
agreed.
so I always like to ask people, biggest F up.
Mm.
And sometimes they're like, there's been so many. And I'm like, I know, let's talk about yesterday. But what's something that you learned from a mistake?
Well, where do I begin of all the mistakes from this morning? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the thing, is we all make mistakes. And when people um, sort of put other people up on pedestals and are like, I want to be like them, I'm like, you do realize that they're infallible humans, right? And why do you want to be like somebody else? And so I'm always interested in that. But at the same time, for me, one of the biggest mistakes I made in my career, I started my first company in 2008. And I didn't have a crystal ball, and I didn't know that that would be a big old recession. And the thing that we were doing was tied to healthcare, and the companies that we were doing it with were also tied to the autos. So if you remember in 2008, those two things were really big topics, along with the housing market. And um, in that moment of starting the business, when I look back and I think about the lessons that I learned, the biggest mistake I made was being so excited to do this business again with my co-founder, who was my old boss, my mentor. I've had two really wonderful bosses in my life. He was one of them, and just is like a soul person to me. And I think I got so caught up in that and the excitement of that I didn't pay attention to the voice of it's probably not the right time. And not knowing what I didn't know about, because I'm a bootstrap gal. Very shortly after 2008, I had to eat crow and I had to step away from the business. And that was really, really hard to do. And I made a lot of mistakes about not being as well researched on how much money you should have if you're bootstrapping a business and worst case scenarios and things along those lines. And so, while I'm grateful, and it's so funny, while I was eating crow and I was crying and it was the worst time of my life at the same time, and I was stretched to every limit that you could imagine, I remember thinking, because I had to eat crow and go back to work at Yahoo, which, by the way, I'm very grateful that they had me back. And that's a lesson that you don't burn bridges. And thank you, Yahoo. Um, I'm grateful that I had that ability to just sort of like slide back in and recover for a bit. But even though I was going through all of that and eating a big dose of humble pie and being embarrassed and all of those things, I remember thinking, I'm going to do this again. And I did it again in 2015, but still all of that was riddled with mistakes and decisions that, going back in the time machine, I would have made differently. So there you go.
I love the recovery, reinvention, you do it again. I mean, I think if you have an entrepreneur spirit, you have an entrepreneur spirit. And no one's going to get you down.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to do it. You're going to make it work. Like, that's what makes entrepreneurs so special.
Or crazy.
I know I could never do it, but I love entrepreneurs. I have a soft spot. I married one. So I think you guys are awesome. I just want to be shotgun. I don't want to drive a car. I'll help you market your idea from the front seat, but
we need that support. Yes. Yes. I mean, I was bitten by that bug, and once you get bitten, it's like, it's hard to not lean in. So yeah, thank you for the support. We need people like you.
Well, Amy, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I said at the beginning, you've got a light that lights up a lot of people and energizes a lot of people. I feel energized. I know our listeners feel energized to get, just a little sliver of your genius. We covered a lot of ground. I think we talked about sales and how so much has changed, but so much has stayed the same. And ultimately, it's about great conversations and it's about business acumen. And that's what we have to start training towards. Less robotic, less, you called it the over-segmentation of sales. We had a nice debate about BDRs. I think we agree, but maybe we need to rename it or something. I don't know. We'll work on that as a side project. And then we talked about entrepreneurship and, reinvention and the ability to learn from your mistakes. So thank you for coming on Talking Sense. Really appreciate your time. And I know the listeners are going to get a lot out of it.
You're welcome. Thank you. And I really enjoyed our time together. And at the same time, we agreed and we also disagreed a little bit. And I love that, because it's okay to disagree. And the one thing that we showed through our conversation is you can do that and not have scorched earth and still come out both being right and still saying, wow, wait a second, you've given me something new to think about. And that's cool. And so that's one of my favorite moments of this conversation. And so thank you. I've really enjoyed it. And I hope that this was helpful for anybody listening. And this was a treat. So thank you so much.